Okay, today I want to talk to you about writing an introduction to your essay. Now, if you remember the very first class that we had in this unit of study, remember we looked at an essay about the 4th of July. And we analyzed that essay thinking about the different elements that were included in that essay. Today we're just going to focus on the introduction. Now, we made a list of things that we noticed about that essay. We noticed, first of all, that it's a paragraph, so it was indented, and that the writer indicated or tried to hook the reader, engage the reader, get the reader interested in the first 2 to 3 sentences of that paragraph. Then we noticed that after the hook, the writer wrote a complete sentence for each of the 3 main ideas they wanted to use to support that thesis statement. And then the final sentence in the introduction is the actual thesis statement itself. Okay? If we use the sample essay as kind of a way to follow, a pattern to follow, a structure to understand and imitate, we will be able to write a very effective introduction. Okay? I want to begin by having you take a look at this paper that we have, that you have in the reference section of your binder. It's entitled The Hook. And just like a hook is used to catch a fish when you're fishing, a hook can be used to catch a reader. And we're talking about catching a reader, we're talking about catching a reader's attention, catching a reader's interest. Okay, this sheet gives you 5. There are many, many more than 5, but 5 is a good place to start. Many of you may be very used to using a question as a hook, but I'm going to challenge you, if you are in the habit of using a question all the time, to try something different. Okay, so let's review what the different hooks are. The first one is called a rhetorical question. Who knows what the word rhetorical means? Sawyer, what does it mean?
So you're not supposed to answer?
Yes, rhetorical questions are questions that don't get answered. Okay, so you have to be really careful here if you're using a rhetorical question as your hook, because the temptation is to answer your own question, and you really want to avoid that. Okay, here's an example. If you could design the perfect friend, what qualities would you choose? Would you want your friend to be a good listener? Or are you looking for someone who loves video games as much as you do? Notice that these questions are rhetorical questions. The writer never answers them. Okay, so if you do rhetorical, do not answer your question. The next one is called a global statement. Global means worldwide. Something that can apply to everyone. Okay, look at the example. Everyone has someone special in their life. That one person you whisper your deepest secrets to. That one person who comforts you when you're sad and celebrates your triumphs. Okay, so notice that's a global statement. It can apply to everyone. The next one is called a scenario. You're painting a picture. You're creating a scene. You're helping your reader feel like you are actually there. Look at the example. Picture this. It's Saturday and you're enjoying a beautiful day at the zoo. Suddenly you notice that the tiger seems to be acting strangely. He's pacing back and forth inside of his enclosure. Okay, so notice painting a picture. Listening to that, you probably already have a picture in your mind. You can envision it. You can see somebody at the zoo. You can see a tiger in their enclosure. You can see them pacing back and forth. Okay, that's the job of the writer, to paint a picture in the reader's head. Okay, the next 2 really are only going to be used whenever you have a text set or whenever you have done research, because you need to have facts. You can't make them up. Okay? You can't make them up. A fact is something that is true and can be proven. Okay, so let's look at this example. Now, this is designed to be a surprising fact, something that few people might not know about, something that other people might want to learn more about. You remember, your job is to try to capture the interest of the reader. According to the American Institute for Research, 2.5 million children in our country are homeless. That means 1 in every 30 children in the United States. Chances are someone sitting in your classroom right now does not have a home. Okay, remember, the job of the writer here when using this hook is going to be to try to give a surprising fact, make the reader want to read more about it. Okay, the next one is a quote. And remember, the quote needs to come, obviously, if it's a text-based essay. Okay, here's this quote. 16 million kids in America are not getting the food they need. This shocking statistic comes from No Kid Hungry, an organization whose mission is to end childhood hunger in America. Okay, so obviously a quote from the text. Okay, so our first step in writing our introduction is coming up with a hook. Okay, I'd like to share with you the hook that I have written for my essay, and I'm going to try a scenario. I'm going to try a scenario hook. Picture this. The whole school is gathered in the cafeteria for an assembly, and you have been chosen as a volunteer. The guest speaker offers you a fried scorpion. Would you eat it?
Yes.
Okay, rhetorical question. Doesn't get answered. Okay, so now it's your turn to practice. We're going to do something called writing in the air. Can anybody remind me what writing in the air is? Sawyer?
Where you write in the air and think about stuff.
Okay, I see what you're talking about, where you put your pencil in the air. But I'm not really talking about that. That's a literal definition. Anybody ever hear their teacher talk about writing in the air? Writing in the air is when you rehearse what you're going to actually write by speaking to a partner. So what you're going to rehearse right now is going to be the hook that you're going to put in your introduction. Okay, so look at your sheet. You're only going to be able to choose from the first 3. Okay, so a rhetorical question, global statement, or scenario. And remember, you need to come up with 2 to 3 sentences, not just 1. 2 to 3 sentences. You're going to write it in the air. Okay, so just practice it verbally with your partner. All right? All right, go ahead and start. Start practicing. I'm not asking you. You're going to poke a hole in the Which one have you decided to scenario? So think about what you're writing about. Think about, first of all, your statement, right? And think about your main ideas. Now, remember, when I wrote it, one of my main ideas is about the assemblies, right? So when I went to paint my picture, when I went to do my scenario, I made sure that I focused on an assembly that I remember attending. Okay? Alright, so I could have also picture this, and I can talk about a theme decoration in the lobby. Something like this. You enter the lobby and you're in an enchanted forest. Okay? So, or picture this, you're walking up to your school and there's a yellow brick road. Okay, so, or my other main idea, remember, was about the bees, remember? Very level conditions. So, if I was going to do a scenario, I could picture this and I could describe, the entire kindergarten class standing around for the house. Okay? So, if you're going to do a scenario, you want to think about choosing one of your main ideas and you're trying to take a picture of
Wait, what? So this guy figure on the playground. So Zach and Tia you're alien. You're writing a test.
you want to look at your main ideas and you want to see, ask a question that relates to
Looking at the big screen, it's starting to get lighter.
Okay, guys, let's come back and let me just share with you a couple of things that we talked about when I was leaning in and listening to your conversations. One of the things that I talked about with Julia and Jalen was that when you're getting ready to do a scenario type of a hook, which is what they were working on. They wanted to do a scenario type of a hook. One of the things that is really helpful in that situation is to think about one of your main ideas. Notice that my scenario hook went with the main idea of the assemblies. Okay, I could have also created a scenario describing a tradition. I could have said something like, imagine the entire kindergarten class dressed in Native American garb and standing around a teepee for a Native American powwow. Okay, I could have created that scenario. Now, if I had chosen this main idea, Shetts Creek Elementary as a new theme, I could create a scenario of walking into the lobby to enter an enchanted forest, or walking up to the front doors of the school to find a yellow brick road painted. Okay? I'm pretty sure that most schools don't do something like that. Okay? Now, when I leaned in with Chase and Carter, they were working on trying to come up with a hook that was rhetorical question. Okay? And again, we used the same strategy. And the strategy that we used was to think about our main ideas and to try to come up with a couple of rhetorical questions that would go with one of our main ideas. Okay? Like, have you ever dressed in Native American garb and participated in an authentic powwow? That would be a rhetorical question that would have to do with a grade level tradition. Okay? Have you ever dressed in a 50s costume? Okay? And sang the words to Blue Suede Shoes? Okay? That was part of the Gifted musical that's conducted almost every single year. That was one of the scenes in that. Okay, so your rhetorical questions could focus on the grade level traditions that perhaps maybe you participated in. And remember, rhetorical means it doesn't get answered. All right, so that's the basic strategy when you're thinking about writing a hook. You want to choose the kind of hook you want to write, but then the second step would be to think about one of the main ideas that you have written about and to plan your hook around one of those main ideas. Notice I didn't do all three main ideas. I just chose one. All right? Does everybody see how that's going to work? Okay. During our work time today, what I want you to do is I want you to go to your seat with your notebook, and I want you to write at least two different hooks. You can write the one you rehearsed with your partner today, and then you can write another one using one of the other kinds of hooks. So in your notebook, by the end of our work time, you should have 2 hooks written in your notebook. All right, any questions before you move off? Okay, go ahead back to your seats and start working.